Hello, I'm Bruce DePoy. Coming up today on News Talk, House in disarray. Republicans scramble to find someone willing and able to serve as Speaker. The search so far unsuccessful. Even when they find someone able to pull together the needed votes, will he or she be able to bring the divided GOP caucus together? We'll ask former Congressman and former Governor Bob Ehrlich. Then, accusations that Montgomery County Republicans are using their clout to close early voting locations for partisan reasons. We'll hear from two members of the Board of Elections, Republican Jim Schalick and Democrat David Naiman.
From News Channel 8, this is News Talk with Bruce DePoy.
Hi, everybody. Welcome. Good to have you with us on this holiday Monday. We have a great show on tap for you this time. Congress is in recess this week, you know, from exhaustion. When lawmakers return from vacation, Republicans in the House will resume their search for a leader. The Speaker of the House is second in the line of presidential succession, and yet the deep divisions in the House have made the search for a successor to John Boehner very, very difficult. Former Maryland Governor Bob Ehrlich is here, a Republican. He served 4 terms in the U.S. House representing Baltimore County. It is always great to have you.
And they were great years, by the way.
You enjoy when people call you. You know, you're entitled to be called by your former title. Do you?
I love congressman, though. I love state delegate. That's the most fun job I had.
Delegate was the most fun?
You could be a real legislator there. No staff. You actually drafted amendments, Bruce. Believe it, you were actually a legislator in the state legislature. In Congress, staff-driven.
But knowing you as I do, I'm guessing the title governor is the one you know, when people say,
hey, governor. It's pretty neat. My kids are impressed anyway.
Hey, give us your take, because I'm really curious to get your perspective on what's happening right now in the GOP conference. Were you as surprised as everyone else that Kevin McCarthy went into that meeting and said, I'm not your guy?
Nobody knows what nobody knows. So there is disarray, and so I think the news reports are accurate and fair. But again, it's sort of like the Hillary Clinton campaign. There may be a scandal today, maybe a scandal in a few days, but the fact of it is she is the leading Democratic contender by far. So my point to you is, particularly in this day and age of hyper news and shelf lives being so short, the disarray today will be forgotten soon if the right person is chosen. Now, I think the right person is Paul Ryan. He's able, in my view, to marry both wings of the party. And by the way, Bruce, and we've had this discussion many times on your show, it's not as though there are major ideological divides here, but there are major tactical divides, and that's the problem. And that ultimately is the reason John Boehner resigned.
Can you characterize as best you're able the amount of pressure on Paul Ryan right now, and do you think
enormous, intense, a lot? He's a great guy.
Do you think it'll be successful in the end?
It's up to Paul. He can be a lot of things. He's articulate. The reviews from obviously running with Mitt were very positive. He's chairman of the Ways and Means Committee, one of the most powerful positions in the world right now. He has sort of a career path laid out for the next 5, 10, 15 years. This, in a sense, well, it certainly would change it, but he is one of the few folks, in my view, who meets sort of the litmus test from both sides of the philosophical divide.
It's got to be flattering to have...
That's a tactical philosophical divide, as I said.
It's got to be flattering to have so many people come to you and say, Congressman Ryan, we need you, your party needs you,
He's smart,
the House.
He's charismatic, he gets it, and he's fair.
It could be that the first day of the job is the best day of the job, and that it's all downhill from there, because the challenges, what drove Boehner away, what we think drove McCarthy away, all that is there day one.
Look, the Republicans told the base, we need the House. Let's get the House. We got the House. Then the Republicans' leadership said, all right, we need the Senate. We got the Senate. And now it's, well, that's great, but we still don't have the executive branch. We need the executive branch to actually get things done, which, by the way...
You can put bills on the desk. If you have a majority in both chambers, you don't need...
I love what Gingrich is saying. You're absolutely correct. I agree with your premise. It's not just about that. It's not even about sometimes reaching success. It's putting votes on the board that count and letting your base know you're actually doing something tangible, quantifiable.
Joining us now by phone is Republican strategist Bob Rusbold. Bob, we appreciate your time today. Thanks very much for being with us. Given your relationship with Speaker Boehner, were you as surprised by Kevin McCarthy's decision to bow out as the rest of us were? And do you think Speaker Boehner will stay on as long as he's needed?
Well, first of all, Speaker Boehner has said he will stay on until another speaker is chosen. So even though he has announced his last day is the end of October, if there is no speaker by that time, he will stay on. So he's doing the right thing for the House of Representatives. As far as Kevin McCarthy goes, yes, everybody was surprised, including Kevin McCarthy's staff, who fully expected him to play this out. But McCarthy, it is a fact, did not have 218 votes on the House floor, and to be Speaker, you have to have 218, and he did not see a way to break the deadlock with the Freedom Caucus and the Tea Party people, and he withdrew, and he will remain as Majority Leader at this point in time.
What's going on now, Bob?
Well, you know, everybody knows that Paul Ryan's being lobbied heavily. He is the one candidate who is acceptable to both the Freedom Caucus and the so-called establishment Republicans. Paul Ryan is able to straddle both of those, but you said earlier, Bruce, his best day may be his first day. The issues don't go away just because Paul Ryan may be the next Speaker of the House. You still have the CR that expires on December 11. You have the debt ceiling extension, you have Ex-Im Bank, you have the transportation bill. There are a lot of big issues that whoever the speaker is, and it doesn't matter who it is, they have big issues they have to confront. But Governor Ehrlich is right. This is not about ideology. This is about tactics and process, and the Freedom Caucus wants to fight, and they'll even fall on their swords where the establishment side of the party wants to get things done. They want to do the doable.
Governor, a couple things there from Bob Rustbolt that you and I can pivot off of. How frustrated are you by this sense that it's our way, that a small group, too small to govern but too big to be ignored, is saying our way or the highway?
I see both sides of this. I've been in those meetings. I was WHIP, as you know, in the WHIP organization. We had the same issues under Speaker Gingrich. It's a difficult line to draw because when you go to your base, you go to your town meetings, you go to the folks that elect you to write your checks, that go door to door, they're telling you, look, go up there and get something done. At least let me see something. Let me feel something. Let me touch something. And when almost every time it's, well, we don't have this, so we have to indulge, we have to acquiesce, we have to cave, they get tired. And they are tired, so I get that. On the other hand, you can't let the government, in my view, shut down. You can't. The national debt is a serious issue, obviously, or at least paying the bills from the federal government's perspective. So I see both sides, the pragmatic side and the, hey, we sent you to Washington for a reason side. And again, your premise with regard to Paul Ryan, the first day may be the best day, that doesn't go away, as Bob said.
Even if you had a caretaker, even if Ryan sticks to his guns and says no, and you end up with a caretaker, all the issues remain. Is the best way forward a speaker? Let's say for the speaker.
The best way forward is a strong speaker now. Yes.
For purposes of discussion, let's say it's not Ryan. Let's say it's more of a caretaker type. Is the best way forward someone who's willing to get to 218 or to 300, however they can, independent of party? Because part of what has hung the thing up is this notion of it has to be a majority of the majority, or we're not doing anything.
Well, you're losing control of the chair, obviously. And
not so
majority
obviously.
rules. Well, you do. Majority rules. That's the House. You know that. When you're the minority, you don't even know what time to show up. There's majority rules. Both sides treat it like that. If you have a caretaker as a short-term answer, all you're doing is just kicking the can down the alley.
But there are things that are the debt cap and if they do nothing else, and surely they should do a highway bill and a whole bunch of other things. But the
XM is still there.
XM, but the debt cap and funding the government, you got to do.
Yeah, and so they'll get done. But again, what that means is more weeks, more than a few weeks of bad press having to answer these questions, Republicans looking like they can't get their act together, not good long term. As I said, short term, this is no big deal. As it drags on, it becomes a bigger deal for the party and for our presidential candidates.
Perfect last couple words, because I was going to pivot to Bob Rustbolt and ask about how all this overlays against 2016, Bob. And do candidates for president call their colleagues in Washington and say, guys, you're killing us, get it together?
Well, you know, one of the points the Freedom Caucus is pointing to is that the three top presidential contenders right now are, in fact, the outsiders, Trump, Carson, and Fiorina, and they feel that has empowered them. But at the end of the day, there's still only 40 votes out of 247 Republicans in the House of Representatives. And the party that's in power has to govern at the end of the day. And the Freedom Caucus, in my opinion, is more comfortable acting as a minority, even though they're part of the majority. So, yes, the presidential campaigns are intersecting with what's going on in the House to some degree. But, governing is governing. And as you know, the Freedom Caucus still wants reforms of the speakership. They want to go back to the pre-Gingrich days, back to the days of empowering committee chairs like Dingell and Jack Brooks and Dan Rostenkowski, who ruled for 40 years in these committees and had their own fiefdoms. And frankly, there are problems with that paradigm as well as empowering the speaker. So there's a lot in play and a lot going on, and the House has to make a decision next week on who's going to be the speaker.
Governor, Congressman, Delegate.
Bob's right. I remember my first few weeks coming in, the class of '94, the majority makers, new contract with America. And a bunch of my class had thrown spitballs from the bleachers, which is the easiest thing to do in politics, and Washington's corrupt. And guess what? We got here. We were in charge. It was our job to make sure the trains ran on time. And people were walking around going, wait a second, we just ran against it. Now we are the establishment. So the easiest thing to do in politics is be an outsider. The easiest thing to do is throw spitballs to the bleachers, okay? But because there's no responsibility involved there. When you have a speaker and you're in the majority and the American people sent you there to actually get things done, that's real responsibility. We all have been reminded, if it wasn't already front of mind, that the speaker doesn't have to be a member of the House of Representatives. Yeah. He's talking about a Mitt Romney type, a Bob Ehrlich type, coming in and leading the chamber, even though they're not a member of the institution. Is that crazy talk, not worth any additional time? Bruce, typically, yes, that would be crazy talk, but in this day and age, not so sure.
Bob Rust Belt, Tom Davis made news on the show here the other day on Friday when he said if Paul Ryan can be persuaded and prevailed upon to serve, he will do it under the condition, the tax policy, because he's head of Ways and Means now, right?
He wants fundamental tax reform.
And so, as a practical matter, not on paper, but as a practical matter, tax policy will move to the Speaker's office, and Kevin McCarthy will do party fundraising that involves travel. That Ryan will do the Washington stuff, but he's not going to travel all around the country raising hundreds of millions of dollars. Does that sound feasible to you? Does that sound right?
Yeah, first of all, I want to be the first to endorse Bob Ehrlich for Speaker. I think that you heard it here first on Channel 8. But you were right. If Paul Ryan is going to become the Speaker, he is definitely, in my opinion, going to cut a deal with his entire Republican conference and with Kevin McCarthy and with the next chairman of the Ways and Means Committee. And that is, one, he has a young family, and he wants to spend time with his family. He cannot replicate what John Boehner did and travel all over the country and campaign for Republican House members and raise money. That would fall to Kevin McCarthy, majority leader. And I think McCarthy, who's already been doing that, would take on that primary responsibility. Second is, he is all about reforming the tax code and entitlements, and all of that, or most of it, falls under the Ways and Means Committee. They have Medicare and those sorts of things. So I think you're going to see him make a big push for that. But there is also speculation that one of the conditions for him to be Speaker is that he will only commit to be Speaker through this Congress, through the end of 2016, which basically gives him a year and a few months to do what he wants to do as Speaker. And then he wants to go back to the Ways and Means Committee.
Interesting.
So even though tax policy may move temporarily to the Speaker's office, he will want to reserve his seniority and right to be chairman after 2016 in this Congress. Again, this is all speculation.
Yeah. Let me jump in.
There are a lot of Republican members talking about these preconditions for him being Speaker, and I think the conference will go for most of them.
We're way over on time, so 10-second answer. If Ryan says no, who is the second best choice from within the institution? Who's second best? Very fast. Bob Rust Belt?
Well, there's been talk of Trey Gowdy. It's got to be somebody that can straddle both camps, but there are other people down the line that I think could fill that role. Maybe even a Patrick McHenry, Chief Deputy Whip, and some others.
Governor, real quick, who would be the second best?
I don't have a second best right now.
I would second the nomination, but I can't. I play, as you know, I play everything right down the middle.
Bruce, I know we're over time, but I think Bob made a great point. The modern speakership has morphed into you're just a chief fundraiser, whether you're Nancy Pelosi, Newt Gingrich, John Boehner. It doesn't matter what party has control. You just run around the country raising money.
Bob Russell, Bob Ehrlich, great conversation. Thank you both.
Good to see you.
Appreciate both of you being here. Great conversation.
Bob, good to talk to you.
We're back with more News Talk. Great to talk to you, Bob. We're back with more News Talk right after this.